for the rest of the panel. I'm sure somebody has a question. My wife's always good for a question. Emily, I know you have one. Samantha? What's that now? That's a good one. That's awesome. So let me take 2 minutes and give you an overview on the book of Revelations. Okay? So in Revelations, John meets Christ on the Isle of Patmos, and Christ shows him things that will surely come to pass. Then you see his revelation throughout the ages, and then John says, or Christ says to John, a voice in Revelations, the end of the 4th chapter says, "Come up hither." And then John comes up, he shows him the throne room, and then after that, everything starts pouring out the moment the Lamb takes the book. Then you start seeing the trumpets, the vials, the plagues, and everything in the world gets topsy-turvy. Okay? That's at the catching away of the church. So we are coming up to the point where Christ said, "Come up hither." And basically God takes his bride we were talking about, pulls her to him, and then he pours out wrath upon the world. Remember this, the Bible doesn't say that we won't have tribulations, just the opposite. It says you'll have tribulations in this world. But remember, we're not appointed unto wrath. Okay, and the world is appointed unto judgment or wrath, but the church of God is not. We're quickly approaching that hour. So where it is in Revelations 5, where God takes the book and it goes back into the hands of Christ, into the hands of, the second Adam, that's right where we're at. That's why we're seeing all the world alignments get in order. So, okay, go ahead.
The Bible tells us a wise man considers his counsel, right? He takes wise counsel. So there's a good little proverb. It's not a proverb, but it's a saying. It's this guy. He's on a hurricane's coming and he's flooded and he's on the top of his house and he's praying to God, help me, save me. And this guy comes by with a boat and he's like, "Hey, hop on." And he's like, "No, God's got me covered." And then this happens 2 more times and the guy drowns and he doesn't realize that not everything came by supernaturally. Sometimes God just sends a way that seems a little obvious. So when it comes to making a decision, consider wise counsel, and sometimes there's not going to be necessarily a correct answer. Like, does God want me to go into mechanical engineering, or does he want me to be a software engineer? It's not really a particularly divine question that obviously if God wants you to go in a certain way, he will push you in that direction or make it clear. But there's many times where God doesn't necessarily have a preference, and it would depend on the question. As far as life choices, right? Does he want to? What's biblical, right? Does he want me to stay with this person, or does he want me to stay with this person? Well, which person leads a more biblical lifestyle? Then you would pick that. That would be a good frame of reference. But there's many things that are just kind of up there, and just use their best judgment, use wise counsel, and seek wisdom.
Yeah, I think if you're not feeling led to do it in any certain way, I think an obvious answer is seek wise counsel. Go to an elder at your church, or the pastor, get some counseling on it, and then ultimately choose whatever gets the job done.
Also consider your obligations and responsibilities. How well can your gift serve in the capacity in which you are choosing? Could you serve better over the other? Would one, if it's a job, would this one cause me to work a lot of long hours and then take away from my ability to serve the body of Christ in the capacity in which I'm already serving? You see, because then it's easy once you consider those things. Lord, well, I need the extra money, but it's going to detract from my ability to serve the church on, let's say, Wednesday nights where I'm a deacon in my church or something. So, and they use me and need me a lot. And the little extra money, and that's the gap there. And in faith, with prayer, wisdom, and counseling with your family, your wife, and upon those decisions, then the path starts becoming pretty clear.
I'd also like to add to that. Sometimes in our walk with Christ, sometimes we like to moralize our walk with Christ. It's like, well, clearly there is. I heard this saying that perfection is the enemy of good. So there was this theologian who said that there is this donkey, and he is the most rational donkey of all times, and he stands between two bales of hay, vacillating which one is better. There is clearly a better choice. And he vacillates, and he starves to death because there was the perfect option, but it was the enemy of good. There was a good enough option. And oftentimes we find in our walk with Christ, we think, well, we have to moralize our walk, and clearly God's going to be happy with me, or he's not going to be happy with me if I do X. And God doesn't really work that way. In the same way that, like Daniel said, seek counsel, because you don't want to open up this library slash locomotive shop. It's just maybe that's not the best idea if you want to start a business. But also, if you're hey, Dad, I need some money. I'm going to start maybe if you can give me a little money, I'm going to start up a business. And I'm thinking about going into, let's say, starting up a software engineering counseling business where I offer my services. You'd be yeah, that's a pretty rational choice. I would do that. And so sometimes I think that when there are good options, I would ask my friends that I trust, I'd pray about it, and then I just make a good choice, trusting that God is just going to bless what I choose if I feel like it's done well also. Does that make sense?
Yes, I wanted to add one thing to that, because he said, what did you open it up with? The
donkey.
Yeah, but you said, yeah, perfect is the enemy of good. I said to somebody in the church the other day, and I've learned this as a pastor, perfection is the enemy of forward momentum. Many times people wait till it's perfect before they move. I find perfection never comes till it's hindsight. We worked out all the kinks while we were moving. You see, we made decisions, and we kept actually traveling and taking one step at a time, and before you know it, we were at the top of the steps.
It also helps if you can analyze yourself and figure out exactly where your priorities are, right? So let's say you want a better job that makes more money, and there's an oil rig, and they want you out there, 100 hours a week, and it's away from home. And then you also think, well, I also want a wife and kids. That's not exactly co-inducive to having a wife and kids. So just because there's more money, is it a step in the right direction? You want to move forward. And perfect is the enemy of good. It's a bad decision is better than no decision. A no decision doesn't get you anywhere in life. We weren't cast out of the garden and told, hey, don't make any decisions. We were cast out of the garden, and the thorns and the thickets would fight against us, implying that we had to move forward, right? The garden we didn't stop at the garden. We had to keep a forward momentum going. So you have to analyze yourself and figure out exactly, well, what is forward? Well, probably having a wife and kids at the age of 15 is not great, right? That's a little bit stunted. So, maybe pick a baby step. Maybe you go get a job, and maybe you'll hold that job for a little while, and you don't like the job, but you can tolerate it just enough to keep going, right? And maybe make the best of it. You don't like your boss, and you want to quit, but you don't have another job lined up, so you can't quit. So get another job lined up for us, get your resume going, maybe network with some people, and then start applying to jobs, and then move forward to something else instead of taking a step backward and quitting.
Yeah, there have been times actually doing that right there where I've seen myself. I have a job, and I'm like, yeah, but this is a pretty good job, but I really want another one because I feel like I could do better. But maybe that's not the wisest decision if I go get another job, because what if it's not guaranteed and they fire me? And then sometimes when we get too in our heads about life often works out, and we overcomplicate things. And your decisions matter less than you think they do, because there have been from you until the time of Adam, there have been a long line of progenitors who have managed to carry on your lineage and to getting it to you. So your decisions matter less than you think they do. All right, next question is, how should Christians respond with when anxiety, depression, how should Christians respond when anxiety, depression, or emotional exhaustion do not go away even after prayer?
I think praying about something is the obvious go-to, but just when God doesn't answer your prayer doesn't mean that's the time to give up, throw yourself on the ground, and go into a fit, right? Whether or not God answers your prayer doesn't change what you do. You keep moving forward, you do what you know to do, and you not getting your way doesn't change the outcome of your decisions. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. Do what you know to do constantly. And then also, you don't have to have a rationale for why God won't answer your prayer. You don't deserve that. He doesn't answer to you. But there are a multitude of reasons as why he wouldn't, right? If you're dealing with anxiety or something, maybe he just wants you to overcome that, right? Maybe he doesn't want to take it away from you. My son will have or my daughter will have a hard job one day. I don't want to run over and take away that hard job and do all the work for them and pay all their bills for the rest of their life, because they'll end up with no character, right? Adversity creates character. So if God comes in like an overbearing parent and takes away every hard situation from you, you'll have absolutely no character. And then you'll be disgusted with yourself at the end of the day, because you'll have gained nothing of point. You'll have earned no character or any attribute that anyone would want, right? You see someone with a high-earning job. They work for that, so there's amount of respect for that. You see someone who's in really good shape running triathlons. You give them their kudos. That's hard work. All of it is hard work that you give respect towards because it's hard work. Not everyone can do it. Someone who knows 8 languages, you give them their respect. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. But someone who knows 1 language, there's no credit to that. That's just speaking.
And there's also, so you said that what's the difference between spiritual and psychological care? So I guess here's a scenario. You've got someone who they don't eat very well, and it's statistically they know if you see a judge after lunchtime, you're likely to get a lighter sentence because the judge just ate and they'll be in a better mood by the time they get to see you, right? So psychologically, our diet has a lot to do with how we feel. So you can't tell me that a dad who works too many hours, 60 hours a week, and he's not feeding himself very well, and he's putting himself under a lot of stress, and he doesn't eat, and he comes home and he's a little bit grumpy, that making sure that he gets a good meal in and that he's not hungry and grumpy isn't spiritual care, right? Because him being upset, him being negative, and his mood being down is mentally and spiritually affecting his kids and his wife, his whole family. So if sometimes taking care of yourself physically, our body's a temple. Taking care of yourself physically is spiritual care. So I don't really draw a big distinction between the two. And regarding to anxiety and depression, it's kind of a spectrum, right? The words can be thrown around loosely, right? Like my OCD is acting up to that. I got OCD, and you don't really. You're just a little tidy. So, but if like in cases of like severe depression, for example, GLP-1s like Greta, they decrease appetite and they cause people to lose weight, and they cause people to lose weight by a lot. The studies show there are some health implications. But the problem is that if you're overweight, the number 1 killer in America is heart disease. And if you get some health complications and you get rid of the risk of heart disease, that's a win, right? Hopefully you would have been able to do it without it, but hopefully you can just stop drinking without AA, But sometimes these things are kind of necessary. And if you are depressed to the point where you're thinking of, like, there's no other options, for one, you need to see a psychiatric evaluator. And antidepressants, they're not good. They're not great for you. But if it keeps you alive another week, well, then that's really good for you, right? I mean, if you're starving to death, then gummy bears and junk food are really, really healthy for you, right? So it depends on what you mean by you're depressed and anxious. But, spiritual care and physical care are really closely intertwined. And I would look into, making sure you seek proper services, right? I mean, God put them here for a reason.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I was sitting there thinking when Samuel was saying how, somebody has a great job and how much kudos to them, but they work for it and God doesn't always answer your prayer. I'm like, I have I've got to repeat this back to him when him and I are counseling. What's the thing is, preach to thyself, preacher. Yes, but absolutely. Remember, prayer is not only about healing. Prayer lots of times is speaking and worshiping to God to where you're offering up worship and sacrifice. But many times that God will let you do all the things that you can do. And sometimes he lets you carry things a little longer than you think you should. But there's a lot of stuff that we can do. We can lighten our mental load. We can require a little more out of ourselves. And then there's many things we can do to make ourselves have a better day. You see, there's a lot of choices that we just sit and lament and put the responsibility on God to do that, when a lot of times those choices are ours to be made, not his. You see, if you're in a miserable, miserable job, well, giving you a new job, it's not God. It's on you to go apply for a new job. Make that decision. You're like, well, I don't want to. I'm scared and everything else. Well, now you carry the burden of mental depression. You see what I mean? Pray about it and get up and move. I have found one of the number one things in counseling that there's three people in a counseling session, and there's three things we can do here. Okay? I can add the advice or wisdom. God can add the power. You have to add the will. You see? And without those three combinations coming together, God's going to bless your efforts. I'm going to give you a device, the best thing you should do. You have to have the will to implement. And if you don't, you'll sit right there. You can't make somebody drink. You know? You can't make somebody eat. So then remember the will to get up and make things different. Make it better.
Cool. Our next question is, how can I pursue dating and marriage intentionally without becoming desperate, passive, or overly idealistic?
So you can go into it with a little bit of discernment, right? They keep telling me to point the mic like this. I've been corrected 3 times now. David sent me a text too. So I'm sorry.
It's for the people online too.
You go into it with intentionality, right? A lot of self-control is involved, right? Dating should be fun, right? You should enjoy the person you're dating. You should enjoy each other's company. And dating is to figure out who each other are and figure out how to talk to the opposite sex. And so that way, you know, when you do get married, it's not completely awkward and you're figuring things out, right? So dating is it's a social function. Now, to go with that is self-control, right? You know, I think Doritos and snacks are all good. We put them out front chair in the church there, and I'll grab a bag. But if you are grabbing snacks to the point to where you are 400 pounds and growing, you've not been very wise with the snacks. You need to, lay off, right? And so if you are someone, let's say you're a guy and you're really suave and you just have you're just tall, good looking, you have it all, it would be very easy for you to have a way with the ladies, right? You don't indulge yourself too much, right? Because it's not exactly good. The same thing with girls. If you are attractive and you can get a lot of attention from guys, attention's great. We love attention. We're humans. Attention's a very good thing. Infants will die without it. You could feed and clothe an infant and keep them out of the weather, but if they don't get physical attention, they'll die. So attention, we need attention. Attention's good, but using that attention don't defile yourself, right? No, just any more than anything, right? There's nothing wrong with eating tiramisu, but getting drunk every weekend is not a good thing. So just be sagacious and practice wisdom just like you would anything else.
That about sums it up for me.
I will say dating is so much easier in hindsight after being married. You know, you're like, man, what was I thinking back then? You know, it's so much easier now. I know everything there is to know about women. But I will say, whether you like it or not, actually kind of a little bit tying back into what Daniel was talking about on the last question, God's not going to come down and do it for you. And a large portion of it, I'm not going to get into this idea of soulmates or not soulmates simply because my wife is here. However, jokes aside, I'm not saying that God doesn't have somebody for you, that he will not absolutely bless that marriage. But the problem is that if you have this idea of like, yeah, God's going to bless my marriage, but I really put zero effort into myself, when that person comes along, that God would have blessed that. It would have worked out. But you put zero care into yourself, zero intentionality. Like you expect life to just hand everything to you. And it's kind of like we were just talking about the job. You want the job, you didn't even apply to it. You know, like let's be realistic then. And I think the same thing. The dating marketplace serves as, I mean, you are buying and selling essentially. I'm buying with everything that I can purchase with, as everything that I bring to the table, and so you're going to be able to get everything out of a partner that you were able to bring to the table at the time of your dating. So you want more, invest more into yourself is a better way to go about it too.
Yeah, if I could, sorry, go ahead. If I could have told myself anything, I would have told myself it's not that serious. It's not that deep. You know, just take her out to dinner. She's not a monster. I mean, some of them are, you know, but sometimes they are. They can be scary, but it's not that deep, right? Don't do anything. Don't slip into wrong territory, and don't take it too seriously. And work on yourself. If you want a more attractive partner, then make yourself more attractive.
Yes, but I would say this. And first, you have, like you said, the attraction. You have the attraction level. And remember that men and women are different. They both are exchanging and looking for what they don't possess. And women are usually beautiful. They're not needing you to be beautiful. But they need you to be a provider, a leader, somebody that's strong. And she needs you to be everything that she's not. And a man is not looking for a nice career on the woman, right? So that's not what he's looking for. He has all of that. Okay, he's looking for everything that he's not. Okay, and he's looking for her to provide a good home, to help raise his children, somebody he can build life together with. And then with that, you're looking for compatibility. So I will say this one thing: if that's what you used to get the person, that's what you should use to keep the person. Keep them both happy. You have somebody in the marriage and then you no longer consider them because you feel like you've got them. Either one of two things: you won't have them for long, or B, they're a prisoner. And you are the warden and they're a prisoner, and it'll look just that way.
Yeah, I mean, they say don't stop dating, even in your marriage. Continue to try to woo your partner, your spouse. It is a large part of your marriage. Before we go on to the next question, as the farmer says, if she doesn't find you handsome, she'd at least find you handy. All right, our next question is, how does the sun know what time to rise in the morning?
Is there a second meaning to that question?
No. Hannah sent it in. All right, so actually, to be fair, Hannah didn't send it in. She said, hey, I don't know if you saw this question. But so another question is, Paul tells us to flee from lust. What does fleeing look like?
If you feel so, let's use it in the context of literally any context when it regards sin, right? If you have a propensity to rip people off, do the opposite. That is fleeing from it. Not only do you, when you feel the urge, you're like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Or you're a glutton and you say, oh, I want to eat an entire cheesecake. Not only do you not eat the entire cheesecake, you go on a run. Do the exact opposite. You want to rip off this guy so bad, and I can taste his wallet right now. Not only do you not do that, you bless him in a different way financially. You do the exact opposite. If you find yourself being lustful, you go to the exact opposite. Flee, do as far away as you can from that at all times. If you know yourself to be a person who you tend to have issue with sexual sin, then you would tell yourself as a man, I don't meet one-on-one with other women. I set a boundary with myself. because I don't allow temptation into my life, it won't grab a hold of me.
I think that's a good practice whether you deal with sexual sin or not. It's
I absolutely agree. But that's just an example, right? If I know I'm going, if I have a problem with alcoholism and I'm going to go to a party and they tell me, yeah, we're going to have 99 shooters there, I'm probably not going to go. I should probably definitely not go to that party. Maybe pick a different party, right? Any other party but that party. I don't allow it to get around me. I don't go near liquor stores. I legitimately flee from it, right? Like it's a monster. Get away from it. And then if it's nowhere near you, how can it get you? It can't.
I think that it was an awesome explanation, but if I could, I'd like to add one layer. In the scriptures, Paul actually used the word not sexual sin. Paul said flee fornication. Okay? And fornication is sexually unclean actions. Okay? And the reason this is the only scripture that Paul ever used this vernacular for. And the reason being, there's many things we resist, there's many things we withstand, there's many things we stand against. But when it comes to sexual immorality, Paul's showing here the power that sexual immorality holds on the human race. Don't play with it. Don't even entertain it. Don't even go around it. He says immediately flee. Just like if you came up on a grizzly on a trail, would you go, well, he might be nice. And let me see if I can't scoot past him, and maybe I can pet him a little bit, just a little pet. No, you wouldn't do that. You would flee. And if you didn't flee from a grizzly, then immediately it would show your lack of understanding of the power of the grizzly. So Paul's using this, saying when it comes to fornication, sexual sins, my brethren, flee. Because the power will catch you. It will take you down.
Because it's almost a point of arrogance to think that you could just play around the riptide, right? Why would you do that? Right? There's no instance in where you think I can I'll just go here, or a large whirlpool, right? I'm not going to go near it. The second it gets a hold of you, it'll just pull you in and drown you. I'm not going to. Why would I be arrogant enough to think, I can just play around it, and if it gets too bad, I'll just get out. Well, if it gets too bad, it's probably already late.
Yeah, I've got a story, and I believe this was told to me by an old coworker. I assume it's true, but they said that there was a friend that they had. He was another coworker, but every Friday they would go to happy hour and they would go have some drinks afterwards. Right? They were all white collar, worked in an office. It's a kind of a normal thing, and their one coworker, we'll call him Jim. Jim would never go. He would never go participate. He was always, and they would give him a little bit of flack about it. And finally, one day, after about 5 years of working there, they convinced Jim to go. And afterwards, Jim didn't stop at one beer. Jim got absolutely wasted. Well, he died in a car crash later that night on his way home. He was driving under the influence. So there's a lot of, just because some people don't struggle with a particular sin doesn't mean that there's not really a mind over matter for a lot of things, right? You have your biological proclivities, and you have the proclivity to sin. So you got to use wisdom. Some people's stopping point's like, okay, one beer and I won't have that at all, and then other people's stopping point is I flee from it. I don't keep it in my house. I don't associate when people go drinking. I don't go, right? I completely back off of it. And I think that's akin to the verse when he says to flee, to kind of take that mindset. If you have a weak point, if you have a weakness, or you have your sins that you have a proclivity to, then flee from it.
I'd add to that story. I had one of the instructors that was teaching me my clinicals years ago. He said to me that I'm a recovering alcoholic. He said, I haven't drank in 20 years. And I haven't missed an AA meeting in 25 years. He said, because I was a raging alcoholic. He said, when somebody would take a drink and say, have one drink, he'd say, yeah, my thought was, why not 12? Why not 20? why not do it till I black out? He said, that's the way I drank. He said, there was no such thing as one drink. He said, if I was on a plane and they had drinks, I would get them until they made me stop or there was no liquor left. He said, so I learned that I had a problem, and once I acknowledged it, that I'm an alcoholic. Even though I haven't taken a drink in 20 years, I'm still a recovering alcoholic. It keeps me in mind of what I am and what I should never be or get near. It's kind of, it made an impression on me, the way he said I did it and I saved my home.
I saw this minister talking about this idea of making a covenant. And he said, and it sounds silly or strange at first, but to make a covenant with something, you'll make a covenant before God with your wife, with your spouse, that I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you, unless till death do us part. But he said, make a covenant with your eyes, that I vow, I will not put these things. And I think that's also, and it kind of struck me, I was like, but that's true. We don't, because in our heads we like to play with the idea. We let it sit back there, and it's, how long will your marriage last if you sit there and I play with the thought of cheating the entire time? It's like, how long is that going to, eventually you're going to slip. And when you find yourself in this situation. And one thing I've also found, it's make up your mind before you even get into the situation of like, no, I am not doing this. Because a lot of the times if you leave it open to question and then you find yourself in this situation, it's a 50-50 and it may not go the way that you want it. So oftentimes, make your decision beforehand. If I already know, as sexual urges, as it's coming up, I already know what I do in times of those, I'm out of there, right? And to give you a picture, we were just in Florida and we were walking on this trail, and I was walking quite quickly down this trail, and I almost stepped on about like a 4 or 5 foot snake. And I was leading everybody behind me. I was in the lead. So what they all saw take place is what you should do in a situation of sin. You should jump and scream and run the other way. So I'm not even joking. That's exactly what happened. All right. So why are men leaving the church?
Why are men leaving the church?
Yes. I hope not leading the church. That would be pretty explanatory.
I would say it's in most instances, not in most, but in some instances, it's understandable, right? If you've got a generation where you can see there's an utter lack of fatherhood in America right now, it's an extraordinary issue, and in many, many different communities, it's one of the largest plagues for young men and households overall. That's literally plaguing the nation. And when men don't grow up with a father, they don't have the values of manhood instilled into them, and it's something that they yearn for. They need, whether or not they acknowledge the fact that they need it, they do really need it. And that's societally. They go around other men and they're constantly reminded that I'm not like this and I need to be like this. So when they're reminded of that difference, they feel the need for it constantly. The church should be also providing that. The church should be a staple for young men, old men, holding them accountable. So when you do have children, you father those children, whether you like it or not, it's your responsibility. You hold your responsibilities regardless of how you feel. It's your job. Doing your job supersedes any feeling you could feel about a situation. Ultimately, your feelings have very little to do with it. Your feelings are a talking point, and that's it. It doesn't go further than that. It dictates your actions. And then the church is supposed to be the one upholding the standard for men, and then also mentoring young men in how to be godly, strong, Christ-like men. And they're also not getting that from, and this is a really big problem I have with the Western church, is a constant focus on only the positivity in Scripture. It's not just positivity. All of it ends up being positive if you do it, but it's hard. It can be very, very, very hard. Yeah. But that's your job. It's your job. It's your job to go through that. It's just like anything else. You put in the hard work, you will see good results. the idea that Christ is just going to do 99% of the work for you, or you're going to show up to church, you're going to pay your tithes, and then do absolutely nothing else, or not even pay your tithes, and do absolutely nothing else, and he's just going to shower you with 40 mansions. I want to give them to my neighbors, and no, it's hard work. Why would it's not like you're just being taken care of. You're his hands and feet, and that means hands and feet work. So it means you need to do something about it. You need to work.
So I think the question is it's slightly misleading, and because it implies that women aren't also leaving the church. People are becoming less religious, not just men and women. The numbers are greater for men, but it is both men and women. We're seeing the same trend with men and women, but there's biological differences. You go to an urban population, and there's more people in jail in urban populations than rural populations, but most of those people are men versus women, right? So men tend to fall on extremes, right? Women kind of gravitate towards the center. So it's not like it's just men leaving the church. It's men and women. But one of the reasons that it's so you can look at the reasons, okay, why don't women go to jail in the same rates as men do, even though that this population, this urban population, they have higher rates of criminality. And one of the reasons is that women are less disagreeable than men on average, or in the extremes, right? Men can be more disagreeable, and more disagreeable men are less happy that they did not get their way, or more likely to take offense to something and do something that will put them in prison. So we can look at the same issue with church, right? So why is it affecting more men than women? And one of the reasons is men don't crave the stability that church provides like women do, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So church provides a stability and a community. There's also the same reason that there's about a 50-50 split. It's 49-51 of men and women in the United States. More women vote Democrat and more men vote Republican, right? And because it's the policies. More women want policies in place to protect the downcast, to protect those who are less fortunate. They want the blanket of society to be more encompassing and protected. And men, on average, not all men, but on average, men are a little less, they care less about that. Men I just want to be left alone. I want to pay less taxes, and, I go to work. Why can't he, right? And more men are likely to take that attitude, whereas women are a little more empathetic. And why not? They're the ones that are stuck with the kid, right? So biologically, they're going to go that way. They're the ones stuck with the baby who needs it the most. So they're just wired to lean more towards protective communal foundations, right?
So if I added one layer to that, it's an epidemic, as they say, that men are leaving the church. Although, like Daniel said, you are having decrease in numbers in religion overall, but the men are leaving it in more numbers. The reason being is because of the Western idea, which is the feminization of the church. Okay? They have turned the church away from what it was ordained to be, which is Christ-centered, God-led. Okay? That's a hierarchical structure. And we come to church to be corrected. Whether we come to a fellowship, we come to commune with one another. But if communal gathering makes it a church, then the PTA meeting is a church. Then the lodge down the street is a church. Okay? A lot of people want to turn it 100% egalitarian. So when you make the church egalitarian, then you have ruined the structure of a church, because God is not egalitarian. God is hierarchical in nature. See, and you come to church to be corrected, to get advice, to find out where I'm doing wrong, where I'm doing right. Well, men like that. They love structure. They love to be told where I'm doing right, where I'm doing wrong, what do I need to do to improve. It might be repent. You see what I mean? Well, the church was given that Christ downward. Well, when you turn it into a community event and the whole thing's connection, then you feminize the church, and the reason that men would be there is gone.
Steve and I had this conversation because this is a big topic. Steve, we discussed this, and we're like, this would be like a month to kind of like just spending 40 hours a week on this to figure it out. But the conclusion we came to is the reason church is more egalitarian is it's a waterfall effect. It's because there's less men interested in it, right? And it's because more women have dominated the community sphere. And I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, well, the thing is, the question would be, I think, to push back a little bit, you'd say, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg, or did they both come in simultaneously? But I will tell you this, I have attended some of the largest ministers' events that have shaped Western culture. I don't want to lay the ministers' names out, but in their events. And so then they had the private pull-offs where they're talking to ministers alone, pastors specifically, on how to shape their church. And this is what they said, and I immediately disagreed, was they said, listen, if you get mama, you get the whole family. So never, no matter what, if you guys want to have mega churches, never correct mommy at all whatsoever. Praise her. Make sure you always do the extra. Always put her up. Always praise her for what she is, who she is, and never say anything offensive to her. And you'll get the whole family. They were telling these churches how to grow mega churches. Well, in doing so, yeah, you got it. And all the men left and all the women stayed. And now we're dealing with the Western epidemic. You created the world you wanted. I just don't think you necessarily wanted it.
I have so much to add to this, and I don't think that I could do it succinctly, so this will be for another time. We have one more quick question, and I don't think it requires that much explanation. It's, what is God's opinion on suicide?
I think this is, okay, so there are a couple sides to it. There's a somewhat of archaic idea that, if you commit suicide, it's, well, there's two sides to it, right? One side says it's a mortal sin, and then that's more of a Catholic.
It's a Catholic origin.
Yeah, but then there's also certain denominations in Protestantism that also say they keep that belief. They don't believe in moral sin. They believe it is, an offense to God and that you'll be sent to hell for it. I completely and totally disagree. I think that's, not only do I disagree, I think that's a horrible thing to say. I think it's an absolutely terrible mindset. It's a terrible thought. And I don't believe that to be God's opinion at all. This is my opinion of God's opinion.
Well, it's almost like an attempt to bully somebody out of suicide, which is not the approach. Oh yeah, you think you're about taking your life? Well, guess what? You're going to hell, buddy.
Yeah, I think it's abhorrent. I would say that probably suicide obviously makes God extraordinarily sad. Right, obviously. That's one of his creations that he hand-molded before the beginning of time, and it just had such a beautiful life to live, and it just took its own, right? It cut it short for what could be a beautiful 75 years, and it was cut short for a momentary lapse in judgment, right? That would be my opinion of it. I don't believe it goes any further than that. Do you have something to say?
I think, okay, first of all, as far as the answer to the unforgivable sin question, no, there's only one, and that's calling the works of the Holy Spirit an unclean thing. Christ makes that implicit, okay, or explicit. That's the one unforgivable sin. But I think the larger question would be, and I've always, every time this question come up, my overarching thought was, what place must a human life had been in to take their own life? And then the question comes back to me, could we have done more? Could the church have reached that person? See, immediately I take, instead of putting it on them, I put it on, because we are the social net in the world there. And we're not the law. We don't bang out the law, but we are the ones preaching the hope. And my thought is there something that we as the Church of God could have done to reach that person, to give them the hope of a better life? Then immediately I think, is there programs or ministries we could have installed to reach the lost, the dying, the miserable, those that are without hope in this world? Then I kind of take it back on ourselves, not putting it back on the individual, because obviously they couldn't carry their load. They didn't, did they? So then St. Paul said, let us that are strong bear the infirmities of the weak.
Which is
Okay.
why it's so important to be connected with your group. You obviously can't reach out to somebody who's not a part of your group, but you have people inside of your group, and you see something, say something, reach out. Uncle Paul.
Okay. Yes. A dark place. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, it's a good question. Okay. So the question he asked, if a person is in that place and that's a dark place, shouldn't they be in a fearful place because of death, because of what or where they're presently at? Yes. But I do want to add a caveat that the human mind can be damaged in such a way, but yet the soul still be saved. Okay? And it could be self-inflicted or it could be inflicted upon them by somebody else. Because I've seen some people, let's say this, somebody left them, took their children, broke their heart, and they went into a mental depression. They may have been a deacon in a church or something, and they spiraled and could not get themselves back up. And I do say this, that they could be dealing and being plagued with a spirit. Okay? And the spirit of darkness, spirit of depression, overwhelming them. First of all, it's not good to be alone. It's not good to be isolated. Okay? Remember I said at the beginning, when they were dealing with that, you have to get up and do something. Put yourself in church. You see yourself spiraling. You see yourself going in a dark place. You need to reach out. Don't be alone. Be honest. Confess openly where I am at with good counsel. Look, I'm not in a good headspace. I'm not in a good mindset. I'm thinking things I shouldn't be thinking. You see what I mean? You voice it out loud. And then you're having people meet with you, counsel with you, walk you through it. Hey, man, it's Friday. Why don't you and I go out and get some pizza and start getting yourself connected, get yourself out of that place. You see what I mean? And so, yes and no. If it's self-inflicted, as in they did this to their life and got it into such a shape that their works is coming back upon them, yes, because they're going to meet something shortly. But what happens if somebody else inflicted that upon them? You see what I mean? Like quote unquote, figuratively, somebody else blew through the stop sign and hit you head on and ruined your life.
Yeah.
You were just going to work. So there's both sides to the coin, and I want to take that into consideration. You see what I mean? When you're dealing with somebody and try to isolate the incident, because if it's the accountability is yours, then immediately you're a testimony to the wages of sin, aren't you? You see, now let's walk that back. Yeah. Approach, yes. But I will say this, that right there, I will add this right now to the church. That's why it's a good reason when you're in a good space to be involved. Be involved in your church. You see what I mean? When you fall on hard times, Solomon said you have somebody to pull you out of the ditch, right? You have a community that's praying for you that you constantly give and put in. So when the dividends are needed, when you can no longer carry your own burden, you have people there that'll carry you till you're back on your feet again.
Yeah, and I will say, depression is a horrible thing to go through, but it is your just like it is to take care of your personal physical body, right? Or your other duties. It's your responsibility. So if you know you're in a place like that, it is your responsibility to go reach out to somebody, go get connected with a church, find some counseling, go reach out to anybody, a family member. It's your responsibility to do that before something drastic happens.
Yep.
What I'll also say is there's a certain level of thought that you need to put into it. Which one of you people would go out, get drunk, and then make the most major life decision you've ever made? No one. No, who would go alter their state of mind and then go make a decision that alters the rest of their life?
Go to Vegas and get married.
Exactly. No wise person would do that. It's a terrible idea. So why? And when you're in a deep state of depression, that will pass. It has ups and downs, but that right there will pass. But then, in your worst moment, when your mind is literally fighting against you, you're going to make the biggest decision that will ever affect your life. Obviously, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, a conversation is easier than the alternative. So that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks for coming out. We have a couple announcements real quick. Tomorrow evening, we have our New Life Collective. That is the youth of the church. We're meeting at the Wellington Community Park like we did last time. This time is going to be focused around volleyball. Oh, we're meeting at, what is the park? I'll get you the park name in just a second. Viewpoint Park, also in Wellington. Viewpoint Park, it'll be at 7 p.m. We're going to be playing volleyball. It's going to have a cookout as well, so the same thing, as well as cornhole. Saturday, we have our ladies' breakfast at 9 a.m. Where is that taking place? I do not have that on here. It will be at Juliana's house. So it'll be in the women's group chat if you need the address. Then we have the men's baseball game at 1 p.m.